Welcome everyone to another video on the Small Business Treasury channel. Today I want to talk about something very interesting, and I think a lot of founders and CEOs and C-level executives and CFOs should be aware of certain measures and protocols that should be protective measures that should be in place for your small business and growing business. And today I want to talk about double authentication through your banking partner. All right. So I have here in my hand these are called RSA tokens, right? And these are issued by the bank so you can have protection when you're logging in to your banking platform. Okay. And the way that these little tokens work, right? This every single major bank is going to have one of these as a treasury service for small businesses and growing businesses. And the way these work is, think about it as an advanced level of phone number authentication when you log into your bank. Okay, so when you log into your banking platform, this these digits that you see on the screen, it's a 6-digit code that changes every 30 to 60 seconds. Okay, this comes directly from the bank. And what that allows you to do is that it gives you another level of protection whenever you're logging into your banking platform. Okay, and I'll give an example of what I mean by that. When you log into your JP Morgan, when you log into your Bank of America, your Wells Fargo, your XYZ bank, it's usually going to ask you for a user, for a password. And then if that's the only security measures you have in place, you're able to access your accounts. Okay. Now, that's fine for a tiny business or an individual personal account that doesn't have much activity going on. There's not a lot of money there. But when you're dealing with several hundred thousands of dollars or millions of dollars or tens of millions of dollars, you need to be more proactive in protecting that capital. So what these RSA tokens, what they're for, is that when you log into your bank, you have a unique user, you have a unique password, and then it's going to ask you for an authentication code, which is your 6-digit code. Now, some banks have a 6-digit code plus a PIN, right? So it could be 6 plus 4. Some just have the 6-digit code. Some of them have soft tokens, which means that you can get it directly from your mobile device. Now, I prefer the hard token, right? Because it's a lot more difficult to access um, in the event that your phone gets stolen, right? So if your phone gets stolen and then someone's managed to get into your user, your password, and then they have access to your phone, they can now log into your banking portal. But if you have a hard token and then you have it in the office, for example, you have your user, your password, and you leave this in the office and you get your credentials compromised, they don't have access to the token, so they can't log in, right? So this token is very important when it comes to adding a security measure to your login portal. But it's not just for your login portal, okay? These are used to also release transactions within the banking portal. Okay, let me explain what that means. When you log into your banking portal and you need to release a wire, you can implement the RSA token to be activated and to be used whenever you want to release a wire. Now, that is incredibly important, because if for whatever reason your banking platform is compromised, someone gets access to your banking information, they're able to log in, they're able to bypass double authentication, and then they attempt to release a wire because they were able to access your banking portal, they won't be able to because they don't have the RSA token. And these digits change. So that means they have to have this in their possession at the time of the release. This is very important when it comes to protecting the cash in your bank account, especially when you're processing ACH and wires. This could be implemented for a variety of different services within the banking portal. It could be implemented for ACH, for wires, international wires. So I highly advise that as your business grows, that you ask for a hard token from the bank, so you are protecting your login credentials and as well logging the ability to release transactions within the banking portal. This is used at every organization, period. Every $1 billion organization, every several $100 million organization, every treasury individual, whether it's a treasury analyst or a treasury director, they have these at their desk, because this not only allows them to add another level of security to the cash within the banking accounts and business checking accounts, but also gives you a digital signature. So when someone releases a transaction, it shows through the serial number who released that transaction, right? So as your organization grows and you start adding accounting staff, and then some of these staff are responsible for processing vendor payments, or they're processing ACH transactions, or they're processing um, any type of payment, and you assign a token to one of your team members, whenever they approve a release or initiate a payment, it shows the digital signature of who signed off on it, right? So this is very helpful when it comes to growing organizations, and there's a mistake that happens and no one wants to take accountability for who initiated or who released or who approved the transaction. This will tell you, as an admin, as a treasury admin or a CFO or a C-level executive, who signed off and who initiated the transaction. And this is incredibly important for fraud prevention as well, because in corporate treasury, at the $1 billion level, at the several $100 million level, the question has always arisen, well, can't two or three people come together and get in cahoots to release a fraudulent transaction? In theory, yes, but the legal consequences behind it is actually makes it impossible for it to happen. And let me explain this in further detail. If you have an organization, you're generating a couple million in revenue, and you have 3 accounting staff. You have an AP specialist, you have a manager, and then you have a director, right? In order to release a transaction, you can make it, you can discuss with your bank, you can make it that all 3 of them have to sign off. You have to initiate by the AP specialist, you have to approve by the manager, and you have to release by the director. Okay. Now you've basically have implemented a protocol by implementing hard tokens in your treasury department, that they are signing it off digitally for each of that process. So now if anything illegal ever happens, you have full proof by the banking signature, the banking history of who initiated, approved, and released the transaction. And under the law, embezzling money or creating false invoices or doing anything that may hurt your as an employee, hurt your organization intentionally, is a crime. So now they have, each one of those signatures has showed that they participated in a crime, right? So that is one of the examples of why these things are incredibly important, especially as a growing company, because it signs off digitally for each activity that an individual who has access to the banking platforms conducts. That's why billion-dollar organizations are not worried about illegal activities or fraudulent activities, because first of all, there's so many multiple people that require to release a payment, that in order for an illegal activity to happen, multiple people have to participate in illegal activity. And I can assure you, many people are not risking their jobs in prison for a couple, $1,000 or a fraudulent invoice or a fake invoice, whatever it may be. Because the moment you sign off digitally, you are taking accountability as an employee that you participated in this transaction. So if they knowingly participate in fraudulent activities, the token is going to show you that they signed off on it, right? Now that's the extreme side. I like to give the benefit of the doubt that most employees are not, criminals, and then they're not trying to hurt the company and they're not intentional. But on just the basic entry points of Treasury, protective measures, it requires multiple people to sign off on a transaction. So in that case, there's a legitimate invoice that comes in is for 20, 30, $40,000 that you have to pay to a vendor. Instead of putting all that responsibility on one person, you're now spreading that responsibility over several people. It's what we refer to as segregation of duties. So you now have 2 to 3 people who are acknowledging and signing off on a transaction that is leaving the bank, right? So an AP specialist initiates it, and a manager approves it, and a director releases it, right? Or you can structure it however you want to. This is your organization, your company. You can make it to the point where every single wire or ACH has to be released by you, the CEO, or by the CFO, or by the controller, or by the head of accounting, right? So if that is not released by the individuals based on their position and their hierarchy, the payment is not released. So you're protecting your cash, right? So that's the segregation of duties. You're spreading the responsibility, and you're spreading the threat, and you're spreading the risk over several people. That's why large corporations who manage billions of dollars and millions of dollars on a daily basis, we have segregation of duties. We have multiple people who sign off on transactions. Each one of those individuals are acknowledging that this transaction is legitimate, that they are participating in this transaction, and that you have the proper protocols and procedures in place to acknowledge that transaction, right? So that's the importance of these hard tokens. It adds another level to your banking platforms and to your payment processing. So um, as a growing organization, the sooner you implement these as your department grows, the better, because you're now implementing good habits as your organization grows, right? So that's all for today's video. I'll talk more about other examples on Treasury products and services and other things that are at risk for small and growing businesses in the future. If you have questions on a particular topic, put it down in the comments or send it to me individually, whatever you want to do, and I'll talk about it in my videos. My goal is to help small business owners and founders and CEOs implement enterprise level Treasury policies and procedures in their growing businesses so they can protect the capital they worked hard to obtain. All right, that's all.